Usually when we talk about a bottleneck in a system, we are conditioned to look for, a physical structural failure.
Right. Something obvious.
Yeah, exactly. Think about a factory assembly line. If the conveyor belt jams, the boxes start piling up in one spot, the alarm goes off.
Flashing red lights, all of that.
Right. And the manager can walk right over, point at a smoking motor and say, there it is, that machine right there is broken.
It is a wonderfully clean diagnosis.
It really is. Broken or not broken.
We crave that kind of visibility, I think. When a problem is easily categorized and contained, fixing it is really just a matter of swapping out a part or, adjusting a dial.
You just fix the thing.
Exactly. It gives us a sense of control over the system.
But, and this is the big but, if you step out of the factory and into the world of team dynamics, operations, or honestly, even just managing the chaos of a busy household, that clean diagnosis completely vanishes.
Oh, it's gone.
The landscape gets incredibly murky because in human systems, the bottleneck is rarely a broken process or, an incompetent employee.
Far from it, usually.
Right. Far more often, the bottleneck is actually the single most capable, well-intentioned, hardworking person in the room.
Which is a tough pill to swallow.
It really is.
Yeah.
And for you, the person listening to this right now, there's a very good chance that person is you.
Yeah, it creates this fascinating structural paradox. The very element that holds the entire system together is simultaneously the ceiling that prevents it from growing any further.
Your strengths literally becomes the limitation.
Exactly.
And that brings us to the mission of today's Deep Dives. We're exploring a brand new post from the Pantheon Perspective blog. It was actually just published today, July 27th, 2026.
By Nikki Dulas, right?
Yep, Nikki Dulas. And the core of this piece is about navigating that razor-thin, almost invisible line between being an incredibly helpful team member and accidentally transforming into a suffocating bottleneck.
It is such a critical distinction to master. And it doesn't matter your title, really. Whether you are managing a global team, running complex cross-functional projects, or you just happen to be the designated problem solver in your personal life.
The go-to person.
Right, the go-to person. This dynamic is actively playing out around you right now. The mechanics of dependency are pretty universal.
They really are. So the goal for you today is to learn how to recognize this pattern, disrupt it, and ultimately reclaim your time and, frankly, your sanity.
Because playing the hero every single day isn't just exhausting.
It's completely unsustainable.
Fundamentally unsustainable.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's get inside the mindset of a natural problem solver. If someone is highly capable and deeply committed to their work, why are they the most vulnerable to this specific trap?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the root cause isn't a flaw.
Really?
Yeah, it actually stems from a deeply positive trait. In operations or leadership, being helpful doesn't just feel good. It often feels like it is the literal core of your job description.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. People bring you the blockers. They bring you the ambiguous ownership issues. You are presented with broken processes, internal friction, urgent customer needs.
Basically all the chaotic elements that don't neatly fit into anyone else's specific job title.
Exactly. The unclassified problems.
Things that fall through the cracks. And I guess if you are naturally wired to organize chaos, your instinct is to just catch every single one of those falling plates.
You catch them because you can. And Nikki Dulas points out in the text that for a natural problem solver, stepping in is almost a reflex.
Like muscle memory.
Exactly. A question is asked, you answer it. A blocker appears, you dismantle it. A project stalls because no one knows who owns it, so you step in and assign the pieces.
Because you're the one holding the historical context.
Yes. So you constantly provide the missing puzzle piece that allows everyone else to keep moving forward.
Okay, I have to push back on the premise here, though.
Go for it.
If you are in operations or project management or leadership, solving problems efficiently is literally why you were hired. How is getting your team past a blocker quickly a bad thing?
I hear that all the time.
Right, because think about it like being a human GPS for your team. You know the terrain. You know where the construction is. You know where the traffic jams are.
Sure.
So when your team asks for directions, you just tell them, hey, turn left here, take the highway, avoid the toll bridge. They follow your blue line, and they arrive at the destination in record time.
They get there fast.
Yeah. And in business, speed is survival. Getting them there faster has to be a win.
It feels like a win in the moment.
Yeah.
But let's take that GPS analogy further because it perfectly illustrates the hidden cost of that speed.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yes, you navigated them past the traffic today, the project got delivered. But consider what happens next week when the GPS you isn't in the car.
Oh.
They never had to pay attention to the landmarks. They didn't learn how to read the street signs or anticipate the traffic patterns themselves.
Because they were just blindly following my blue line.
Exactly. By providing the exact turn-by-turn directions, you bypass their learning curve entirely. The text explicitly warns against this. If you always hold the context, you become the shortcut.
A shortcut? Man, that implies people are bypassing the actual work of thinking.
They are. They are bypassing the cognitive friction required to build competence. When you become the fastest answer, you trigger this quiet, behavioral pattern across your entire team.
Like they get conditioned to it?
Yes, conditioned. If they know you can and will solve the problem in 5 minutes, it becomes irrational for them to spend 50 minutes figuring it out themselves.
Oh, wow. So they just stop trying.
They just bring it to you. Every single time you act as the GPS, you are actively depriving them of the opportunity to build the clarity and confidence necessary to operate independently.
So your competence breeds their reliance? You solve one problem, but you create a systemic dependency.
That is the trap.
And as Dulas writes in the blog, before you know it, being helpful starts to feel significantly heavier than you ever intended.
Because you aren't just doing your job anymore.
Right. You are literally carrying the cognitive load for 5 other people.
You have centralized the risk. The entire operations momentum is now contingent on your constant availability.
What strikes me is how accidental this all is. Like nobody wakes up and says, I'm going to maliciously hoard all the knowledge today so my team is paralyzed without me.
No, never.
The trap is paved with these tiny, well-intentioned compromises. I think we need to look at how this insidious shift actually happens in real time on a daily basis.
Well, it thrives in the micro moments. The shift doesn't happen during massive strategic overhauls. It happens in like a Tuesday afternoon Slack message.
Oh, the dreaded Slack message.
Right. A teammate asks a procedural question. You know the answer is buried on page 4 of a wiki document somewhere.
Yep.
But finding that link takes 3 minutes, and typing the answer from memory takes 15 seconds. So you just give them the answer.
I am so guilty of this. The math in the moment always favors the quick answer. Telling them to go read the documentation just feels bureaucratic and, I don't know, slow.
But the math in the moment is a trap.
Yeah.
Or consider decision-making. A project hits a gray area where 2 departments are arguing over who has the final say.
Classic corporate standoff.
Exactly. Instead of forcing those 2 departments to have a difficult conversation and clarify the ownership boundary, it is vastly easier for you to just step in and make the call yourself so the timeline isn't compromised.
Or when a process breaks down, and instead of stopping the entire workflow to properly map out a new standard operating procedure, you just verbally walk the team through a patch job.
Just a quick fix.
Right. Or my personal weakness, watching a junior employee hit a wall. They are struggling. The code won't compile, or the client email sounds tone deaf.
It's hard to watch.
It is. Jumping in and fixing it for them feels infinitely better than sitting back and watching them flounder through the messy, frustrating part of learning.
Which is completely natural.
But let me play devil's advocate again here, specifically regarding efficiency and risk. We don't always have the luxury of letting people struggle.
That's true.
If a project is actively on fire, like the deadline's an hour away, the client is threatening to churn, I am not going to hand my team a manual on fire safety and ask them to figure out how the extinguisher works through trial and error.
Right, you just do it.
I am going to grab the extinguisher and put the fire out myself.
And the source material completely supports that instinct. Dulas makes a crucial distinction here. None of these micro-interventions are inherently toxic on their own.
Okay, good.
There are absolutely scenarios where speed is the only metric that matters. If the building is genuinely on fire, you grab the extinguisher. Sometimes someone truly needs your direct intervention to avoid a catastrophic failure.
Okay, that is a massive relief.
Yeah.
So intervening in a crisis doesn't automatically make me a micromanager?
It doesn't. But, and this is but this raises the most difficult question of the entire analysis, which is the building actually on fire, or are you just so accustomed to holding the fire extinguisher that you spray it at every single spark?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The text challenges leaders to rigorously examine their own behavior to distinguish whether they are truly helping in a critical moment or merely enabling a dependency pattern to continue out of habit.
That's a brilliant distinction.
Yeah.
The difference between urgency and habit.
If you find yourself grabbing the extinguisher every single day, For minor issues that your team should be able to handle, you do not have an urgency problem. You have a habit problem.
You're just constantly putting out sparks.
Exactly. You have actively conditioned the system to wait for you to put out the sparks, which ensures they will never learn how to prevent the sparks themselves.
So once you accept that you might be the one enabling this habit, stopping it requires a massive psychological shift.
Oh, absolutely.
Moving from identifying the bottleneck to actually stepping back is incredibly uncomfortable. It goes against every single instinct of a high performer.
The discomfort is profound because you have spent your entire career being rewarded for speed, accuracy, and problem solving.
Right, doing things fast and right.
And stepping back requires you to intentionally allow things to move slower than your own baseline. You have to tolerate a temporary drop in efficiency to build long-term capacity.
It is exactly like watching a child learn to tie their shoes.
Yes. Perfect analogy.
It is an agonizingly slow process. You are standing by the front door, you are 10 minutes late for work, and they're just fumbling with the laces.
They keep striking the loops.
Yes. Everything in your adult brain is screaming at you to just reach down, tie the shoes in 3 seconds, and get everyone out the door. But if you give in to that urge every single morning, you will be tying the shoes of a 20-year-old.
Because they never develop the motor skills.
Exactly.
That captures the physical tension perfectly. You are fighting the urge to intervene when you already possess the answer.
It's almost painful.
It really is. Letting someone else take the lead when you can clearly see the optimal path and knowing you could make it smoother for them, it just feels unnatural.
But the core leadership philosophy articulated in the Pantheon Perspective blog fundamentally redefines the role, doesn't it?
It does. It argues that leadership is not about making the path smoother. It is about helping others develop the resilience and judgment to navigate a rocky path themselves.
Which brings me to a point where I want to dig into the psychology of the leader a bit more. We frame all this intervention as caring.
Sure, we do.
We say, oh, I care about the work, I care about the team, I don't want them to stress. But here's where it gets really interesting. How much of this helping is actually about our own ego? Isn't there a part of us that secretly loves being the superhero?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is the most confronting introspective mirror the author holds up. Dulas demands ruthless honesty here.
It's hard to be honest about that.
It is. You must interrogate your motives. Are you stepping in because the situation objectively requires your unique expertise? Or are you stepping in because it feels deeply validating to be needed?
Oof. That is a tough pill to swallow. Admitting that being the bottleneck feels good because it feels like job security.
It provides a massive hit of validation. Being the person with all the answers feeds the ego and creates an illusion of indispensability.
Like they can't survive without me.
Exactly. But the text warns that every single time you choose to act as the shortcut to feed that feeling of importance, you are actively degrading the strength of your system.
You're weakening the team.
You are trading the long-term capability of your team for a short-term hit of feeling valuable.
You are prioritizing your ego over their growth.
All right.
Let's pivot to the practical. We understand the trap. We acknowledge the discomfort of the shoe tying phase. We've checked our egos.
Good first steps.
So how do we actually restructure our day-to-day operations? What are the practical steps to change this dynamic without letting the entire department collapse into chaos?
Well, the source material provides a series of very specific operational shifts. The overarching theme is replacing the habit of answering with the habit of building infrastructure.
Give me an example.
For instance, instead of answering the exact same procedural question for the 5th time, you force a pause and use that moment to create or update documentation.
So instead of a quick Slack reply, you say, hey, let's capture this in the wiki, and you actually make them read it.
Precisely. And regarding decision-making, instead of constantly making one-off judgment calls because it is faster, you build a simple framework that empowers the team to make that decision themselves the next time the scenario arises.
Okay, let me stop you there, because the phrase build a simple framework sounds like a lot of corporate jargon that basically translates to spend 10 hours making a PowerPoint nobody will read.
Fair point, fair point.
What does a simple framework actually look like in practice? Especially for a team that is already moving way too fast?
That's a great question. A framework doesn't have to be a 50-page manual. In this context, it simply means establishing boundaries and criteria. It could just be an if-then checklist.
Just an if-then.
Yeah. For example, If a team member constantly asks you to approve minor expenses, the framework is. If the expense is under $500 and it is for a recurring software license, you have the authority to approve it. If it falls outside those two parameters, bring it to me.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. You have just removed yourself from 80% of those decisions by providing the logic you were already using in your head anyway.
You're giving them the rubric, not the final grade.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What else does the blog suggest?
Clarifying escalation paths is critical. You must be explicit with your team about what actually warrants your intervention versus what should be handled closer to the work by the people doing the work.
Makes sense.
And crucially, instead of immediately diving into every operational gap you spot, you train yourself to stop and ask why that gap exists. Is it a lack of resources, a lack of training, or simply a lack of clear ownership?
You solve for the root cause, not the symptom.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for the listener who has to log into work tomorrow morning? I am thinking about the modern lean team. Everyone is already doing the jobs of 3 people.
True.
If a listener suddenly stops answering questions, refuses to put out minor fires, and tells their stressed out team to go read the wiki or use an if-and checklist, they're going to sound like a jerk.
They are.
They're going to seem unsupportive or like they're quiet quitting. How do you implement this shift without alienating the very people you're trying to lead?
That is the most delicate balance to strike, and the author addresses it head-on. The objective is never to be less helpful. It is not about stonewalling your team, withholding support, or forcing them to struggle in isolation just to prove a philosophical point.
Okay, so it's not abandonment.
No, not at all. It is about being highly intentional with how your help is deployed.
The definition of help needs a complete rebrand.
It really does. True help isn't always direct intervention. Sometimes help looks like rigorous coaching. Sometimes it looks like investing the time to document a messy process together.
Sitting down side by side.
Exactly. Sometimes it looks like delegating authority and intentionally absorbing the risk of them making a minor mistake so they can learn.
Which is scary, but necessary.
And to navigate this transition without sounding dismissive, the text offers an incredibly powerful tool. It is essentially a linguistic master key for breaking the dependency loop.
Ooh, a master key to rewire the whole dynamic. I am ready. What is the tool?
It is a single, deliberately phrased question.
Okay.
When someone comes to you with a problem that you know they have the capacity to solve, instead of providing the answer, you look at them and ask, what do you think the next step should be?
What do you think the next step should be? It sounds incredibly simple, like almost too simple.
Its power lies in its simplicity. As Dulas explains, that one sentence fundamentally shifts the gravitational pull of the entire conversation. The moment you ask that question, you are refusing to accept the cognitive load they just tried to hand you. You are giving them back the ownership of the problem and forcing them to exercise their own judgment.
You are handing the GPS unit back to them and saying, here, you read the map.
Yes. And you are doing it in a way that provides psychological safety. You aren't abandoning them. You are sitting right there with them, but you are requiring them to articulate a strategy.
You're forcing them to think out loud.
Right. It reminds them that they are fully capable of analyzing the situation, rather than just defaulting to escalation. Over time, you transition from being someone who absorbs the team's work to someone who facilitates the team's ability to do the work.
I can see why that works so well. It completely neutralizes the fear of sounding like a jerk.
It does.
You aren't saying, go figure it out and don't bother me. Yeah. You are communicating, hey, I'm here, I support you, but I trust your brain to work on this and I want to hear your logic. It changes the relationship entirely.
It elevates your role in their professional development.
Yeah.
You move from being required for their success to being trusted with their biggest challenges.
Required versus trusted. If you take nothing else away from this, that distinction is everything.
The blog stresses that being trusted is a profound privilege in any organization. You want to be the leader people seek out when they are navigating intense ambiguity or when they need a strategic partner to unravel something highly complex.
The big stuff.
Exactly. But you must not confuse that high-level trust with being a daily requirement for every single minor operational movement. As the author summarizes, there is a massive chasm between being a resource and being a bottleneck.
Because a resource accelerates the system. A bottleneck, even one paved with the best of intentions, quietly starves the system of oxygen.
Beautifully put.
Thank you. To bring this all together for you listening, this deep dive has covered a lot of ground today. We started by dismantling the trap of the fastest answer.
We did.
We saw how the natural instinct to be a problem solver, to be the human GPS, actually penalizes the people around you by stunting their growth and creating these dangerous dependencies. We examined the micro moments that build this trap and the vital difference between a true five-alarm urgency and just a deeply ingrained bad habit.
And we also confronted the emotional and psychological realities of changing this behavior because it is physically uncomfortable to sit on your hands and watch someone struggle through a process you could finish in seconds.
It's the shoe tying phase.
Right. But true leadership requires that friction. It requires managing your own ego, stepping away from the validation of being indispensable, and actually teaching others how to navigate the terrain.
And we mapped out the practical applications too, moving away from one-off answers to building simple frameworks, those boundaries and criteria that empower decision-making. And most importantly, deploying that magic question. What do you think the next step should be?
The ultimate takeaway from the Pantheon Perspective blog is a radical redefinition of your worth within any system. Your highest value is not measured by your ability to hold every piece of the puzzle together through sheer force of will.
Not at all.
Your true value is demonstrated by your ability to build a system and cultivate a team that is resilient enough that they do not have to rely on you. That is the highest, most sustainable form of being helpful.
It is about engineering capacity instead of enabling dependency. So as we wrap up today's deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought to chew on.
Something to think about.
We open this conversation by contrasting mechanical failure with human bottlenecks. I want you to run a quick diagnostic test on your own professional or personal life. If you were to completely step away from your responsibilities for 2 weeks, starting tomorrow morning, what is the very first thing that would shatter because you are the only one holding the pieces together?
It's a great question.
And more importantly, what is one question you can ask your team today to start handing that piece back?